Hi, I'm Jim Rainey. Welcome to episode 4 of Casting About. In our last episode, we talked about how to diagnose and then to fix your casting faults. In this episode, we're going to talk about the components of effective and efficient fly casting. Fly casting is a process of loading or storing energy into the fly rod by bending it against the weight and the inertia of the fly line during our forward and backward casting strokes, and then transferring that loaded energy back to the line and leader by stopping the rod crisply, again on both the forward and backward casting strokes, therefore transferring that energy back into the line and causing the line and the leader to roll towards the target. Many fly casting instructors talk about principles or rules of fly casting. For instance, the legendary Lefty Kreh and his friend Ed Jaworowski talk about 4 principles of fly casting. The Federation of Fly Fishers talks about 5 essentials of fly casting. Other fly casting instructors talk about other either rules or principles that you must follow. In order to make it a little easier and simpler for us, what I've done is distilled all of these down into a number of components of effective and efficient fly casting. One of the components of effective and efficient fly casting is to eliminate slack throughout the casting process. We do this by using the line to maintain constant tension against the rod tip throughout the casting process. The next component is to accelerate smoothly to a crisp stop on both the backward and forward casting strokes. You cannot load your line efficiently unless you are constantly increasing the speed of your casting stroke. We call this acceleration. We want to accelerate constantly throughout both the forward and the backward casting stroke until we reach the end of that casting stroke and bring the rod to a crisp stop. This releases that energy up through the rod, as we talked about before, and causes that line and then leader and fly to roll towards the target. Another component of effective and efficient fly casting is to pause at the end of each casting stroke. We do this in order to allow the line and the leader to unroll almost completely straight on each casting stroke. A good rule of thumb to remember is short line, short pause, long line, long pause. Therefore, the duration of each pause will vary depending upon the amount of line we have past the rod tip. The next component of effective and efficient casting is to increase our casting arc or casting stroke as the amount of line past the tip of the rod increases. We do this in order to allow us to, particularly on longer casts, have a greater distance over which to accelerate our casting stroke in order to get that longer length of line moving. Again, a general rule of thumb is short cast, short stroke, long cast, long stroke. Another component of effective and efficient fly casting is that the line will travel in the direction the tip of the rod was traveling when we stop each casting stroke, both forward and backward. If your tip is traveling upward, your line will travel upward. If your tip is traveling downward, your line will travel downward. We want to direct the path of the rod tip in the direction we want the line to go. The next component of effective and efficient casting is that the tip of our rod during the casting stroke must follow a straight line path in both the horizontal plane that it's traveling and also in the vertical plane that it's traveling. We want it to follow that straight line path in the horizontal plane because this allows us to form the most aerodynamically efficient loops as our line is unrolling through the air. If the tip of our rod follows a convex path, then we're going to see much wider loops. Conversely, if it follows a concave path, we're going to see the formation of what we call tailing loops. We want the line or the tip of the rod to also follow that straight line path in the vertical plane because this is directing the energy of our cast at the target, and it is the most efficient way to apply that energy during the casting stroke. The very best fly casters will execute these components or rules or principles or essentials in order to get the most effective and efficient cast possible. Now, in our next episode, we'll discuss the mechanics of the distance cast. Until then, good practicing and good casting.